Who's a good friend of Boys and Girls Club, somebody who I said fights for kids every day. He's doing some innovative things. You know, your youth mentoring grants that you guys get, it's because of him. You know, there's a pool of money that gets appropriated every year, and that pool of money has shrunk over the years. Congressman Fattah has made sure that that pool of money increases. So he gets to his desk and he says, you know what, that's not enough. That's not enough for our kids in Pennsylvania. That's not enough for our kids across the country. He's done it with the Gear Up Act, okay? He does things that really separates himself from other lawmakers. He's a true friend of Boys and Girls Clubs. We know him as the congressman for Boys and Girls Clubs because that's what he said. But he is your own. Please welcome Philadelphia's own Congressman Chaka.
Thank you, John. Well, it is an absolute pleasure to be here. And let me first say to all of the young people who are competing, your competition is what allows a person to really be introduced to themselves. You know, it really is. Yeah, Ben Franklin said that. He said, you know, if you could get a young person, you want a young person whose their ambition won't allow them to sleep late in the morning, won't allow them to go to bed early at night. It drives them, right? And that's what we want. And I just want to tell you a little quick story here, because I started out in the Boys and Girls Club movement here in Philadelphia years ago. We built a new club. It's not new anymore, but decades ago out in Mantua, and working with the Crime Prevention Association. And so, Liz, you and your husband are doing a great job. You know that, right? Did I tell you that already? Let me make that publicly clear. They're doing a great job.
They are doing a great job.
But all across our country, I was in Chicago. I went to visit a club that just got finished, a $4.5 million revitalization. And I got a chance to see the new science labs up on the second floor. I mentioned this because I want you to think about this as you're going forward, right? Because you heard that Boys and Girls Clubs are going to be the indispensable linchpin for STEM education in out-of-school locations in our country. And so you got to get ready. You have to get ready, because at these clubs there's an opportunity for us to connect young people up with the country's needs. Right? Not only do these young people have needs, our country has needs. And we need future scientists and engineers. We need people who are going to focus in the areas of math and science. And what we've been working on over the last couple of years, and I started here in a little meeting here in Philadelphia about 3 years ago, was to get our clubs headed in this direction. So now we signed a new Space Act agreement with NASA, which is going to engage NASA with the clubs all around the country. We created a partnership with First Robotics so that we can get the 4,000 young people exposed to the premier robotics training program in the country over the next few years. We want to create an opportunity where there's a platform for these young people, not just to have a safe place to be. That's very, very important. But in order for America to continue its global leadership, we need these young people to live up to their potential. And that is involving making sure that they can take advantage of all that's here for them to take advantage of. So competition is important. Cooperation is like the next step beyond competition, though. Some things you can't do on your own. You got to work together. And that's what these clubs represent in my mind, right? Because we have almost 4,000 clubs, 4 million young people. And so I want you to see the big picture here. The big picture is that there's no other organization in the country that is touching the future in the magnitude that the Boys and Girls Clubs of America is. And that's why I'm happy that we've been able to work together, and Kevin gives me credit, but work together to make sure that the federal government is a full partner in this effort. See, what I try to remind my friends in the Congress is that Boys and Girls Clubs have a congressional charter. That is that there's a connection between the government and the clubs, and we should further this together, in that you're not going to find me on any military base. The clubs are there. On our Native American reservations, the clubs are there. In big cities and small towns, the clubs are there, and there are plenty of examples, right, of success stories that we know that the work that's being done is so important. So, for the young people who are competing, I want you to know that I had my first competition. I ran for elected office when I was 21. I lost. Somebody was asking me how long I've been doing this, right? So I lost. I was 21, and I ran for city commission. I came out fourth out of a field of 22 candidates. And but then I ran again. I ran for the state house, and I won in what I call a landslide. I won by less than 1 vote per precinct. I won by 58 votes out of 10,000 cast. And then I went on to the state senate without any unnecessary hiccups, and so I spent 12 years in the state capitol, and then I ran for Congress. I ran for Congress in '91, and nobody remembers this now, but I lost. I came in second in a field of 4, and then I turned around, I ran again, and I won by the largest margin of anyone in the country. And then, just last year, I got more votes than anyone has ever received in the history of our nation to go to Congress. So, and now this year I don't have an opponent. So, the point is that you have to believe in yourself first and foremost, right? And so for the young people here, there are going to be disappointments. There are going to be setbacks. When I got to the Congress, I ran for a seat on the Appropriations Committee. I lost. It's like my story in life, I lost. But then I ran 2 years later and I won. And now I'm the senior appropriator, right? On a whole subset of federal appropriations. So I actually am in a room with $50+ billion and helping to decide how we're going to spend it and how much we're going to invest in programs like the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. But when I first ran for appropriation, I got rejected by my own colleagues. But I was convinced that I was the right person for the job, so I ran again. So now I ran for a chairman of the appropriation, and I lost. You know what's going to happen next, right? Anthony, you should be able to follow this. Because they tell me you're the smartest guy at North Penn. So the next thing that's going to happen is I'm going to be the chairman. Right? Because I'm younger than the average member, and I have more seniority than the average member. So this is what we would call a sweet spot in my business, right? But I'm very happy to be here with you. I'm going to say a few things, but I do want to acknowledge my daughter, who's here. She's a lawyer here in Philadelphia. She joined me for lunch. Fattah, give her a round of applause. And let me just say a couple of very important things that if you don't remember anything else I've said, right, is I'm committed, and we've been working to increase very substantially the investments we're making in youth mentoring. And we have been very good at basically almost doubling the number that the budget starts out at. But that's not enough, because there's still millions of young people who are not connected to these clubs, even though you've doubled the number of clubs and you've doubled your outreach. And there are other great programs that have doubled their outreach, and I could talk about them. But the point is that we still have 6 or 7 million young people in our country who are not connected to any of the youth mentoring programs that we want to get them connected to. So we have to do more. So I asked the president by letter to reconsider, by letter meaning officially I've asked the president, to take the money from the Toyota settlement, this $1,200 million, and to invest that in youth mentoring, right? And this is a very important thing, because we have to rescue as many of these young people as we can. You heard some of them who gave their presentations. These stories exist all over our country. There are young people who can do great things, who will do great things, but there has to be a place where they can get the nurturing that they need. And if America is going to compete with billion-plus populated nations like China and India, that word, compete, if we're going to compete, right, we can't leave a third of our children in the shadows. We have to get every single one of them to live up to their potential. If we're going to have a country of 300 million, be number one, and outcompete countries that have a billion-plus people, right? So we got to get everyone in the game and ready to suit up. And it's not really a question of the Sixers versus the Lakers. Yeah, I heard that little crap earlier. But it's really a question of America and our emerging competitors in the world, right? So there are companies, I won't talk about any of your town, let's talk about my city, right? It used to be that the best X-ray examiners in the world existed right here in Philadelphia. You would come to Philadelphia, get X-rays, you get them analyzed at Hahnemann Hospital. Now X-rays are taken, they're sent to India to be analyzed, and through technology you get your analysis back, right? We have insurance companies in Philadelphia send their work overseas in the morning. It comes back at the end of the day. The people who are filing their taxes, H&R Block, are sending those little packages of data overseas to be done and sent back at the end of the day. We have to get our young people to live up to their potential if the country's going to be able to survive and prosper going forward. And I believe that the Boys and Girls Clubs of America is at the heart of solving that question because of your evidence-based. See, this is not a guess. We actually know with a certainty that the young people who go into your clubs actually come out on the right side of where we want them to be in terms of chasing their dreams in life. And that's what we have to do more of. We have to create this opportunity for more young people. So it'll make your job harder with these competitions because you have to be figuring out like who's really the youth of the year. But as a country, it'll make our job a lot easier if we have millions of young people who are connected to evidence-based programs, who are connected to STEM education, who are going to be future chemical engineers, and all of the other things that we want them to do. Because I'm convinced, even though my daughter's a lawyer, I'm convinced that the best lawyer hasn't walked into a classroom yet, or the best teacher hasn't walked into a classroom, or the best lawyer hasn't walked into a courtroom, or the best doctor hasn't walked into an operating room yet. That the best is still yet to come. And what we need to do is create the conditions under which these young people's greatness can come forward. And as Gavran said, he says, when we're speaking of children, they go to a place that we can't even visit, even in our dreams. But we know with a certainty that there will be a far, far better place if we have more opportunities, more clubs, and we have our arms outstretched for more of these young people. So keep up the great work and congratulations.